Some stories begin with a scream. Others begin with silence. This one began with a family photograph that looked too perfect to hide a nightmare. A smiling husband, a devoted wife, and two cheerful children stood together in front of a beautiful home, the kind of picture that made neighbors jealous and relatives proud. Yet years later, investigators would stare at that same photograph for hours, wondering how a single overlooked detail had quietly exposed one of the darkest family secrets anyone had ever imagined. What appeared to be the perfect family was, in reality, a carefully constructed illusion waiting to collapse. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness, forgiveness, and second chances still matter in this world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who appreciates meaningful stories, and subscribe to Real Feel Story Hub. Your support helps us continue bringing emotional stories that deserve to be heard. The Harper family lived in a peaceful suburban neighborhood where every lawn was trimmed, every mailbox stood straight, and every evening ended with families walking their dogs beneath glowing streetlights. Michael Harper worked as a respected financial consultant, while his wife, Emily, volunteered at community events and school charities. Their two children, Olivia and Ethan, were known as polite, intelligent, and remarkably well-behaved. To everyone watching from the outside, they represented everything a modern family should be. Neighbors admired them. Teachers praised them. Friends often joked that the Harpers lived inside a fairy tale. Their social media was filled with vacations, birthday celebrations, holiday dinners, and smiling faces. Every anniversary brought another perfect photograph, every Christmas another joyful family portrait. People who struggled in their own marriages secretly wished their lives could look just like theirs. Yet perfection has a dangerous habit of demanding constant maintenance. Behind the carefully arranged photographs, tiny cracks had already begun to appear. Michael had become increasingly controlling over the years, though he disguised it as responsibility. Emily slowly stopped meeting her closest friends. She rarely attended gatherings without her husband. Whenever someone asked how she was doing, she smiled politely and insisted everything was wonderful. Nobody realized that her smile had become a mask she wore every single day. The children noticed changes long before adults did. Olivia remembered hearing arguments late at night through the walls. Ethan often found his mother quietly crying in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed. But children naturally believe adults will solve their own problems, so they buried their fears beneath homework, sports, and school activities. Months turned into years, and the family's perfect image remained untouched. Then one autumn afternoon, Emily suddenly disappeared. Michael calmly explained that his wife had left after struggling with emotional exhaustion. He told everyone she needed time alone to find herself. According to him, she had packed a few bags, written a short note, and driven away without telling anyone where she was going. Many believed him immediately. After all, Michael appeared devastated. He attended church regularly, continued taking care of the children, and spoke lovingly about his missing wife. Community members organized search groups. Flyers appeared across nearby towns. Volunteers spent weeks looking through forests, rivers, and abandoned buildings. Emily was nowhere to be found. As months passed, public attention slowly faded. Missing person cases often disappear from headlines, especially when there is no obvious evidence of violence. Investigators had little to work with. Emily's car had never been located. Her bank accounts remained untouched, but that alone wasn't enough to prove anything. Adults sometimes vanished voluntarily, leaving difficult lives behind. Michael continued living what looked like a normal life. The children grew quieter. Friends stopped asking questions. Everyone slowly accepted the explanation. Everyone except Detective Sarah Collins. Sarah had investigated missing person cases for nearly 2 decades. Experience had taught her that lies rarely collapse because of dramatic confessions. Instead, they crumble beneath tiny inconsistencies that most people never notice. She reviewed every photograph, every financial record, every witness statement, every timeline. At first, nothing stood out. Then she noticed one small detail. It wasn't blood. It wasn't fingerprints. It wasn't a hidden document. It was a family photograph taken just 3 days before Emily disappeared. Everyone focused on the smiling faces. Sarah focused on Emily's wrist. Emily always wore the same silver bracelet, a gift from her late mother. Friends confirmed she never removed it because it held enormous sentimental value. Yet in that final family picture, the bracelet was missing. At first, the observation seemed meaningless. But Sarah kept digging. When investigators searched older photographs, they discovered Emily had worn that bracelet every single day for nearly 15 years. Weddings, birthdays, beach vacations, hospital visits, school events. Thousands of photographs. Except one. The final photograph. Why would she suddenly remove something she treasured more than any piece of jewelry? That simple question reopened the entire investigation. Forensic experts examined the original digital files from the family's camera. Metadata revealed the photograph had not been taken when Michael claimed. Instead, it had actually been captured almost 3 weeks earlier. Someone had deliberately changed the date. That discovery transformed everything. Investigators searched the Harper home once again using advanced forensic technology unavailable during the original investigation. Tiny traces of cleaned blood were discovered beneath recently replaced hardwood flooring inside the basement. The amount was small. Far too small to notice with ordinary inspection. Yet laboratory testing confirmed the blood belonged to Emily. Michael insisted it resulted from an old household accident years earlier. Detectives didn't believe him. Financial investigators uncovered another disturbing discovery. Weeks before Emily disappeared, Michael had secretly accumulated massive gambling debts. Hidden loans, unpaid creditors, and fraudulent financial activities threatened to destroy both his career and reputation. Emily had recently learned the truth. Friends suddenly remembered conversations that seemed insignificant at the time. Emily had quietly mentioned making important life decisions. She had planned to meet an attorney. She had considered protecting her children. She had even started collecting financial documents without telling Michael. Piece by piece, the illusion shattered. Investigators reconstructed the likely sequence of events. On the night Emily vanished, she confronted Michael after discovering the full extent of his deception. What began as another argument spiraled into irreversible violence. In panic, Michael attempted to erase every trace of what had happened. He cleaned the house, altered photographs, manipulated timelines, abandoned Emily's vehicle miles away, and created the heartbreaking story of a wife who simply walked away from her family. For years, people believed him because his performance was convincing. The perfect husband. The grieving father. The devastated victim. Only one forgotten bracelet had exposed the lie. Authorities eventually discovered Emily's remains buried on remote property connected to one of Michael's former business associates. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital records, forensic science, financial motives, and years of carefully hidden inconsistencies finally formed a complete picture. Michael Harper was arrested and later convicted for Emily's murder and multiple related crimes. But the courtroom victory brought little comfort. Olivia and Ethan had already lost both parents. One to unimaginable violence. The other to his own greed and deception. Their childhood ended long before either of them became adults. Years later, Olivia chose to work with organizations supporting victims of domestic abuse. She often explained that violence rarely begins with visible injuries. It begins with control, isolation, fear, and silence. She hoped that by sharing her mother's story, someone else might recognize the warning signs before it became too late. Ethan followed a different path. He dedicated himself to studying criminal psychology, trying to understand how someone capable of appearing so loving could secretly become so dangerous. Although he never found all the answers, he discovered something even more important: evil often hides behind ordinary faces. The Harper home was eventually sold. New families moved into the neighborhood. Children once again played in the streets. Life continued. But longtime residents never forgot the lesson hidden inside that beautiful house. Perfection can be carefully manufactured. Photographs can lie. Smiles can hide unbearable pain. And sometimes the smallest detail, a missing bracelet, an altered date, a forgotten inconsistency, is enough to reveal the truth buried beneath years of deception. If this story touched your heart, please support this video by liking it, sharing it with others, subscribing to Real Feel Story Hub, and leaving your thoughts below. Your engagement helps these powerful stories reach more people who may need to hear them. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what was the one detail that first made you suspect something wasn't right? We'd truly love to read your thoughts. Some families appear perfect from the outside, but appearances can never replace truth. Emily's story reminds us to pay attention to the quiet cries for help that are often hidden behind practiced smiles. Kindness, awareness, and the courage to ask difficult questions can sometimes save lives. Behind every closed